I've had my YouTube channel for almost 10 years, and in that time, I've asked myself, what am I doing with my platform? And more importantly, do I even want to be doing this? The answer almost always comes back as a yes, but then I think about, what am I doing on my platform? And I think that's something that I've struggled to find a real balance with what other people want to watch and what I want to make. And as a result of that, I've had a hard time keeping consistent with it. I think to a degree, we all feel this in some form or another, and it's probably a good explanation for why there's so much indecisiveness and inaction in our world. And I've found as I've gotten older that this feeling of lostness, of not knowing where we're going or why we're doing things or what our future is going to look like, it's very common. It's all too common. You see it among people that are young, you see it among people that are old, you see it among people in the middle. And then the shocking realization comes in that many people live their entire lives without figuring this question out. I've been feeling it a lot more lately. Especially with a little brother on his way to graduating high school and me sitting here going on 20 this month. And it really makes you ask yourself, what am I gonna do? And it's not such a cut and dry question, nor is there a cut and dry answer for it. And I've sat and thought about why this might be, why there's so much variation in it, why there are people that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that still don't know because they've been coasting this whole time. So if you feel like me, if you feel like you're not 100% sure what your future holds and you want to find a direction but you're not sure where, then I invite you to listen to maybe a few of the things I think I've figured out so far. Granted, I'm no expert. I mean, being 20, there's so much left I have no idea about. I think that acknowledging your shortcomings, acknowledging that you really don't have the answers, is a sign of progress and maturity and your way to learning more about the way our world works. And I've found that the more you learn about the world, the more you realize how little you know. And I feel like that's true knowledge, understanding that there is so much you don't know. So when we're feeling lost and we have no idea where to go, where the hell do we even start looking? It's like we're trying to find a needle in a haystack and we don't know where to dive into the hay. Or like an ocean, where do you start looking? So if you feel this way, know that everybody feels this way at some point or another. Some people for longer than others. And the true answer to getting out of it lies in your ability to search and dig for an answer. Many people won't know what they want to do, and because of that, they almost coast. They don't really think too much about it, or they bury themselves in video games, televisions, whatever hobby makes them happy in the moment. But that's the thing about happiness. It's not about the moment. It's about long term. Of course, it's important to live in the moment, but if you get lost in the moment and you can't think about the consequences of your actions, then sooner or later, the consequences of your actions will be the moment. And so I think that's one of the biggest things we have to keep in mind, is that escapism doesn't help us find this answer. So to boil it down, if you're looking for an answer on what your calling is, on why you're on this planet, you'll find it so long as you look. But just like getting in shape or running a marathon, you won't get there overnight. And the only way you can do it is by being consistent and taking it day by day and one step at a time. Because I think that's a large misconception, is that we're looking for the finish line. We're looking to just run on this straight path. Go to college, get a job, be a doctor, get your degree, X, Y, or Z. And it almost baffles me that they teach this stuff, because it is never this cut and dry and simple. For the vast majority of people, it won't be as simple as you get your bachelor's degree, you find a job that you're happy with, and you complete your life's purpose, and then you work for 40 years, and then you retire, and then you're all happy and everything's good. For the vast majority of people, this is not how it's going to happen. And that's perfectly okay. It's a more realistic expectation to have versus fantasy land. And planning your future based around what you want to happen versus what is most likely to happen. And what's most likely to happen is completely defined by you. I think a very important principle of our lives that we often miss is that your goals will change. Your plans will change. Maybe something that you loved so dearly at one point in your life that you wanted to commit your whole life to doesn't bring you that joy anymore. And that's okay. It happens to all of us. But I think a lot of us feel lost if this happens. Let's say we're going to school studying a certain subject, and 3 years in we decide this subject isn't for us. Well, then what? To this, I say that there's a lot of uncertainty that comes in just living in general. And you're never gonna know 100% if that's gonna be for you. It's like we find our life's purpose based on our experiences on the way. And I think a large part that we have to play in that is introspection. It'll involve making really, really tough decisions. And when I say tough decisions, I mean the decisions that you don't want to make, the decisions that make you feel flustered and frustrated because you don't want to have to think about what it's going to be like when you make that decision. Sometimes they're tough decisions about the people you're around, because the people you're around, your environment, those are your influences. And if they're not going in a direction that's conducive for your growth, why are you around them? I've had to deal with this especially lately too, where I'm thinking about the people that are really close to me, people that I love very dearly, and I think about what they're contributing to my growth. How are they helping me? And I realize they're not contributing to my growth. I'm friends with them because I've always been friends with them, or because maybe I had something in common with them at a time when now I don't. And that's a sinking feeling when you know that you have to spend less time with these people, not because you don't like spending time with them, but because you know it's not good for you to do so. This can come in the form of friendships, relationships, perhaps even people that you're meeting now. I found that too, where I'm meeting new people and I think, yeah, I love spending time with them, but they're not conducive for my growth. Their values don't really align with mine as well as we might get along. And when your values don't align with somebody, it doesn't really matter how well you can get along, because at the end of the day, they're not really helping you grow as a person. Granted, that doesn't mean you can't take a lesson from it. And I think that's something that's really important, taking a lesson from these experiences. What can you learn as you go along, and how can you make it so that you don't repeat your mistakes? And sometimes that'll require you telling yourself, hey, I shouldn't be around this person. I gotta limit my time doing X, Y, and Z. And part of that is listening to your gut. And I know they say listen to your gut, but you know that sinking feeling you get in your stomach when you know something, but you don't want to admit it to yourself? You know the one where you realize your relationship is not one that's working for you. Maybe when you gotta confront a friend about something, or maybe when it comes to making a big decision for your life, like moving or something. It's this contrast between what we want to do and what we know we have to do, and then following through with those decisions that really defines us. Now, you could ignore those feelings. You could live in the comfort zone for your whole life. You could not step outside your box. And if you want to do that, that's your decision. However, know that there's not much personal growth to be had inside that comfort zone. Most of that growth that you're going to find is going to be when you step outside of that comfort zone and you do things that are uncomfortable for you. And part of that is going to be really, really tough decisions. So listen to your gut, because you have that feeling for a reason, for whatever it may be. And more importantly, think about what you're really going to do, like what your purpose is. And I think a great place to start is what you want for yourself. Who do you want to look into the mirror and see? Who do you want to live inside? That person that you think of and you think, this is the ideal person. This is the person I would like to be like. Every day, it's important to make an effort to become more like that person. And that's true progress, I think. And in doing so, you're going to outgrow a lot of the people that you used to affiliate with. And that's not a sign of anything bad. Leaving people behind isn't always a bad thing. It's not a sign of bad intent or anything like that. It's a sign that you're moving forward and they're not moving forward with you or in the same direction. And as much as it may stink to have to walk away from that, sometimes willingly, sometimes naturally, it's important to do for your own growth. And if you're not moving away from groups of people that you've spoken to for years, however long it is, you might want to ask yourself why. Or more importantly, how are they helping you grow as a person? And it's okay, by the way. This doesn't mean that these are bad people. It just means that they're not growing in the same direction that you're growing. And when we do this introspection, we have to keep in mind that we're only human, and that when we discover a direction that we'd like to take, it's okay not to get there in one day. And sometimes it may be confusing to what that direction is. Like, what person do I want to be like? And I think finding what you want to be, not what you want to do, what job you want to have, but who you want to be when people meet you, what impact you want to make. It's really, really important to sit with yourself and be honest with yourself, because honesty with oneself is a lot more difficult than it sounds. I think an important question and a good question to ask to maybe find your purpose is, what does this world need? What could I do to make this world better? Just as importantly, how do I be successful at doing that thing, strategize in that field? And these questions take a long, long time to answer. It's not overnight. And I'd be lying if I said that I figured out these questions entirely myself, but it's important to keep asking. And while you're asking it, it's important to not beat yourself up too much, because it's very, very easy to do. I found that positive affirmations, saying positive things to yourself, rewiring the way your brain works in that regard is a really, really helpful thing, because everything in our world is all about mindset. And I preach positivity. I've been preaching positivity for a while. The reason I do this is because I wasn't always positive. I had to rewire my brain to be that way, because I got so negative to a point where it was detrimental. And in order to keep my brain wired that way, I have to keep it consistent. And that's really what it's about, consistency and mindset. And positivity truly will help you, because it means that you're not being overly harsh, overly critical. Even though criticism is a good thing, there's a certain line that you don't want to cross, because at that point you're just nitpicking yourself. And there will be times where the world pushes you down and will continue to do so. Recently for me, actually, I felt that quite a bit. And sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small. Sometimes you'll be going out surfing every day and you'll get cut up every time and you'll keep getting wiped, cough, cough. But it's important not to get mad at the world and to just be like, I gotta keep going. Because if you get mad at the world, then you're just holding resentment and holding bitterness. I find what helps is, like, even if I'm having a horrible day, like a horrible day where something horrible and unfortunate has happened, which lately, trust me, it's happened a lot. I try to think about, like, what went right this day? What was good that happened today? Focus on that, take deep breaths, and I find that even the bad days aren't so bad when I approach it like that. And that's really what helps me to keep going, what helps me to chug along. It's okay to take it one day at a time. And as long as I'm progressing, as long as I make an effort to get better, that's a good thing. And I can't beat myself up for what I don't have, but be happy for what I do. Like, air in my lungs, sky outside, and we can all do this. It's just about mindset. And I think that's one thing that's admired so much about perseverance, the ability to keep pushing on and not giving up, because truly that's the only way we can find success. And doing this in little forms helps just as much, like not getting angry and resentment at the world. A big one I see is getting angry and resentment at your parents or your job or your boss or whoever it is. Maybe this guy that brake checked you while you're driving, or maybe this guy that cut you off on the freeway. Who cares? Whatever it is. When we let those things take control of us, we lose that bit of self-control that we had, and we're saying that it's okay for the anger and bitterment to rule our better judgment. I know I felt this personally, where like you have a really, really screwed up upbringing and you think, man, if only my parents did this, why did they do this? Why was I brought in like this? Why was I raised like that? And you can be mad about that all you want. It doesn't change your current situation. So you can either be mad at that and hold on to it, or accept and say, this happened, but that doesn't define me. And I think that's personal responsibility and accountability in of itself, is not letting those things define you, but letting them educate you. Like, my parents raised me like this, so rather than being mad about it, I'll say I'll learn not to do anything like that, and to look in myself and have more wisdom for my future endeavors. And that's not exactly an easy thing, because it's much easier to just blame everyone else but yourself. But at the end of the day, it's not your parents' fault you're the way you are, because we all have personal responsibility and accountability. And it's when we take that we can truly elevate and become a more successful human being. So to the person that feels lost, to the person that is having a hard time finding their way and discovering why they're here or what they're going to contribute. It's okay. And as long as you keep looking for that, as long as you keep holding yourself accountable and doing introspection, you will find it. But keeping active on these things is what's going to determine if you do find it or not. Because when you give up and you decide to let your influences and your environment dictate who you are, that's when you lose the ability to dictate it for yourself. And we all have the opportunity to dictate that for ourselves.